In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez, Part 2, Chapter 5, Second Half. No matter what Mama said later, she was at first very taken with Virgilio Morales. She would sit in the Galleria conversing with the young doctor about the visit to Virgilio from the United Nations, the demonstrations in the capital, whether or not there was a government in paradise, and if so, what kind it would be. On and on, Mama listened, spoke her mind. Mama, who had always said that all this talking of Minerva's was unhealthy. After Leo had left, Mama would say, "What a refined young man." Sometimes Dede felt a little peevish. After all, her beau had been along too, but not a word was said about that fine young man, Jaimito. How handsome he looked in his Mexican guayabera. What a funny joke he had made about the coconut, what the coconut said to the drunk man. Mama had known him since he was a kindred swelling of her first cousin's belly. What was there to say about him but that Jaimito? Dede and Jaimito would wander off unnoticed, stealing kisses in the garden. They'd play How Much Meat Butcher, Jaimito pretending to saw off Dede's shoulder and instead getting to touch her sweet neck and bare arms. Soon they'd hear Mama calling them from the Galleria, a scold in her voice. Once, when they did not appear immediately, the butcher had been wanting the whole animal. Mama put a limit to how much Jaimito could come calling, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays only. But who could control Jaimito, the only son of his doting mother, unquestioned boss of his 5 sisters? He appeared on Mondays to visit Don Enrique, on Tuesdays and Thursdays to help with any loading or unloading at the store, on Fridays to bring what his mother had sent. Mama sighed, accepting the coconut flan or the bag of cherries from their backyard tree. That Jaimito. Then one Sunday afternoon, Mate was reading Mama the newspaper out loud. It was no secret to Dede that Mama couldn't read, though Mama still persisted in her story that her eyesight was bad. When Dede read Mama the news, she was careful to leave out anything that would worry her, but that day Mate read right out how there had been a demonstration at the university led by a bunch of young professors, all members of the Communist Party. Among the names listed was that of Virgilio Morales. Mama looked ashen. "Read over again, slowly," she commanded. Mate reread the paragraph, this time realizing that what she was reading. "But that isn't our Leo, is it?" "Minerva!" Mama called out. From her bedroom, the book she was reading still in hand, appearing the death of them all. "Sit down, young lady. You have some explaining to do." Minerva argued eloquently that Mama herself had heard Leo's ideas, and she had agreed with them. "But I didn't know they were communist ideas," Mama protested. That night, when Papa came home from doing his man's business about the farm, Mama took him to her room and closed the door. From the Galleria where Dede visited with Jaimito, they could hear Mama's angry voice. Dede could only make out snatches of what Mama was saying. "Too busy chasing to care your own daughter." Dede looked at Jaimito, a question on her face, but he looked away. "Your mother shouldn't blame your father. She might as well blame me for not saying anything." "You knew?" Dede asked. "What do you mean, Dede?" He seemed surprised at her plea of innocence. "You knew too, didn't you?" Dede could only shake her head. She didn't really know Leo was a communist, a subversive, all the other awful things the editorial had called him. She had never known an enemy of the state before. She had assumed such people would be self-serving and wicked, low-class criminals. But Leo was a fine young man with lofty ideals and a compassionate heart. Enemy of the state? Why, then, Minerva was an enemy of the state. And if she, Dede, thought long and hard about what was right and wrong, she would no doubt be an enemy of the state as well. "I didn't know," she said again. What she meant was she didn't understand until that moment that they were really living, as Minerva liked to say, in a police state. A new challenge sounded in Dede's life. She began to read the paper with pointed interest. She looked out for key names Leo had mentioned. She evaluated and reflected over what she read. How could she have missed so much before? She asked herself. But then a harder question followed. What was she going to do about it now that she did know? Small things, she decided. Right now, for instance, she was providing Minerva with an alibi. For after finding out who Leo was exactly, Mama had forbidden Minerva to bring him into the house. Their courtship or friendship or whatever it was went underground. Every time Jaimito took Dede out, Minerva, of course, came along as their chaperone, and they picked up Leo along the way. And after every outing, Dede would slip into the bedroom Minerva shared with Mate when their little sister was home from school. She'd lie on Mate's bed and talk, trying to bring herself down from the excitement of the evening. "Did you eat parrot today?" Minerva would say in a sleepy voice from her bed. That one had nerves of steel. Dede would recount her plans for the future, how she would marry Jaimito, what kind of ceremony they would have, what type of house they would buy, how many children they would have, until Minerva would burst out laughing. "You're not stocking the shelves in the store. Don't plan it at all. Let life surprise you a little." "Tell me about you and Leo, then." "Ay, Dede, I'm so sleepy, and there's nothing to tell." That perplexed Dede. Minerva claimed she was not in love with Leo. They were comrades in a struggle, a new way for men and women to be together that did not necessarily have to do with romance. Dede shook her head. No matter how interesting-minded she wanted to be, and as far as she was concerned, a man was a man and a woman was a woman, and there was a special charge there you couldn't call revolution. She put off her sister's reticence to the independent streak of hers. Dede's own romance with Jaimito required a glamorous, exciting edge with Leo and Minerva always by their side. Most nights, when there was no place safe to go, a new thrilling vocabulary of danger had entered Dede's speech. They'd drive around in Jaimito's father's Chevy or Papa's Ford, Jaimito and Dede and Minerva visible, Leo hidden in the back of the car. They'd go out to the lagoon, past a military post, and Dede's heart would beat faster. They would all talk a while. Then Minerva and Leo would grow very quiet, and the only sounds from the back seat were those coming from the front as well, intent whispers and little giggles. Maybe that's why Jaimito went along with these dangerous sallies. Like most people, he avoided anything that might cause trouble, but he must have sensed that engaging in one illegality sort of loosened other holds on Dede. The presence of Leo gave her the courage to go further with Jaimito than ever before. But without a plan, Dede's courage unraveled like a new row of stitches not finished with a good sturdy knot. She couldn't bear reading in the papers how the police were rounding up people left and right. She couldn't bear hearing high-flown talk she didn't understand. Most of all, she couldn't bear having her head so preoccupied and nothing useful to do with her hands. One night, she asked Leo right out, "How is it you mean to accomplish your goals?" Thinking back, Dede remembers a long lecture about the rights of the campesinos, the nationalization of sugar, and the driving away of the Yankee imperialists. She had wanted something practical, something she could use to stave off her growing fears. "First, we mean to depose the dictator in this way. Second, we have arranged for a provisional government. Third, we mean to set up a committee of private citizens to oversee free elections." She would have understood talk like that. "Aye, Leo," she said at last, weary with so much hope, so little planning. "Where is it you get your courage?" "Why, Dede," he said, "it's not courage, it's common sense." "Common sense? Sitting around dreaming while the secret police hunted you down?" To keep from scolding him, Dede noted that she liked his shirt. He ran his hand down one side, his eyes far away. "It was Freddy's," he said in a thick voice. Freddy, his comrade, had just been found hanging in his prison cell, a supposed suicide. It seemed weird to Dede that Leo would wear the dead man's shirt, and even weirder that he would admit it. In so many ways, Leo was beyond her. Leo's name started to appear regularly in the papers. His opposition party had been outlawed. A party for homosexuals and criminals, the papers accused. One afternoon, the police came to the Mirabal residence asking after Virgilio Morales. "We just want him to clear up a little matter," the police explained. Mama, of course, swore she hadn't seen Virgilio Morales in months, and furthermore, that he wasn't allowed in her house. Dede was scared and angry at herself for being so. She was growing more and more confused about what she wanted, and uncertainty was not something that they could live with easily. She started to doubt everything, that she should marry Hamito and live in Ojo de Agua, that she should part her hair on the left side, that she should have water, bread, and chocolate for breakfast today like every day. "Are you in your time of the month, mija?" Mama asked her more than once when Dede set to quarreling about something. "Of course not, Mama," Dede said with annoyance in her voice. She decided not to read the papers anymore. They were turning her upside down inside. The regime was going insane, issuing the most ludicrous regulations. A heavy fine was now imposed on anyone who wore khaki trousers and shirts of the same color. It was against the law now to carry your suit jacket over your arm. Leo was right. This was an absurd and crazy regime. It had to be brought down. But when she read the list to Jaimito, she did not get the reaction she expected. "Well," he said when she was through and looked up at him, "isn't it ridiculous? I mean, it's absurd, insanely ridiculous." Unlike her golden-tongued sister, Dede was not eloquent with reasons. And my God, what reasons did she need to explain these ridiculous insanities? "Why are you so worked up, my love?" Dede burst into tears. "Don't you see?" He held her as she cried, and then, in his bossy, comforting voice, he explained things. Same color khaki outfits were what the military wore, and so a dress distinction had to be made. A jacket over the arm could be hiding a gun, and there had recently been many rumors about plots against El Jefe. "See, my darling?" But Dede didn't see. She shut her eyes tight and wished blindly that everything would turn out all right. One night, not long after that, Leo told them that as soon as his contact in the capital could arrange for asylum, he and several others would be going into exile. Minerva was deathly quiet. Even Jaimito, who wouldn't give a rotten plantain for risky politics, felt Leo's plight. If he'd just relax and stop all his agitating, he argued later with Dede, then he could stay and slowly work his changes in the country. This way, what good is he to everyone far away? "He doesn't believe in compromise," Dede defended Leo. The anger in her voice surprised her. She felt somehow diminished by Leo's sacrifice. Aye, how she wished she could be that grand and brave, but she could not be. She had always been one to number the stars. Jaimito tried convincing Dede to his way of thinking. "Don't you see, my heart? All life involves compromise. You have to compromise with your sister. Your mother has to compromise with your father. The sea and land have to compromise about a shoreline, and it varies from time to time. Don't you see, my life?" "I see," Dede said at last, already beginning to compromise with the man she was set to marry. She remembers the night Leo went into hiding. It was also the night she finally agreed to marry Jaimito. They had been to a gathering of the Dominican Party in San Francisco, Jaimito's idea. Belonging to the party was an obligation, unless, of course, like Leo, you wanted trouble for yourself and your family. Needless to say, Leo had not come along. Minerva had reluctantly chaperoned Dede and Jaimito and brought her cedula to be stamped. The evening was deadly. There were readings by high-ranking women in the party from Moral Meditations, an awful book just published by Doña Maria. Everyone knew the dictator's wife hadn't written a word of it, but the audience clapped politely, except Minerva. Dede prodded her with an elbow and whispered, "Think of it as life insurance." The irony of it, she had been practicing for her future profession. They came directly home, sobered by the travesty in which they had participated. The three of them sat in the galleria with the gas lamp off to keep the bugs down. Jaimito began what Minerva called her interrogation. "Has your friend invited you to go with him?" Jaimito had sense enough not to mention Leo's name out loud in Mama's house. There was a pause before Minerva spoke up. "Leo," and she mentioned the name distinctly without a cowardly lowering of her voice, "is just a friend, and no, he hasn't invited me to leave with him, nor would I go." Again Dede wondered over her sister's reserve about Leo. Here was Minerva risking her life for this young man. Why not just admit she was in love with him? They were looking for him today at my house, Hamito whispered. They could feel her own shoulders tightening. I didn't want to worry you, but they took me down to the station and asked me a bunch of questions. That's why I wanted us all to go tonight. We've got to start behaving ourselves. What did they want him for? This time Minerva did lower her voice. They didn't say, but they did want to know if he had ever offered me any kind of illicit materials. That's what they called it. Hamito paused a long moment, so the two women were beside themselves. What did you say? Dede's voice broke from a whisper. I told him he had. You what? Minerva cried out. I confess. Hamito's voice was playful. I told him he'd given me some girly magazines. Those guards, you know how they are. They all think he's a queer from what the papers have been saying. If nothing else, he climbed a little in their regard today. You are too much, Minerva sighed, getting up. There was tiredness but also gratitude in her voice. After all, Hamito had stuck his neck out for a man whose politics he considered foolhardy. Tomorrow, we'll probably read in the papers how Virgilio Morales is a sex maniac. They remember a sudden stillness after Minerva left, different from their usual silences. Then Hamito returned to the topic of Minerva and Leo. It was almost as if they had become, for Hamito, too, a shadow couple by which they could talk of his own deepest and most hidden wishes. Do you think she's hiding something? Hamito asked Dede. Do you think they've crossed the Rio Yaque? Aye, Hamito. Dede chastised him for suggesting such a thing about her sister. They haven't exactly been discussing Napoleon's white horse in the back seat. Hamito was now lifting up her hair for access to the pale hidden parts of her neck. Neither have we been discussing Napoleon's white horse in the front seat, Dede reminded him, pushing him gently away. The kissing was bringing on waves of pleasure she feared would capsize her self-control. And we haven't crossed the Rio Yaque, and we aren't going to. Ever, my Sky, ever? He asked, putting on a hurt voice. He was patting his pockets for something. They waited, knowing what was coming. I can't see in this dark, he complained. Light the lamp, will you, my own? And wake up everyone? No. They felt her heart fluttering. She wanted to delay his asking. She had to think. She had to make sure that she was choosing right. But I have something I want you to see, my love. Hamito's voice was full of excitement. Let's go out back. We can get in Papa's car and turn on the inside light. Dede could never bear to disappoint him. They stumbled down the driveway to where the Ford was parked, a big black hulking shape in the dark. Mama would not be able to see them from her front bedroom now. Dede eased open the passenger door and turned on the ceiling light. Across from her, Hamito was grinning as he slid into the driver's seat. It was a grin that carried Dede all the way back to the day her naughty cousin had put a lizard down her blouse. He had been grinning like that when he approached her, his hands behind his back. My lamb, he began, reaching for her hand. Her heart was beating loud. Her spoiled, funny, fun-loving man. Oh, what a peck of trouble she was in for. What have you got there, Hamito Fernandez? She said, as he slipped the ring on her hand. It was his mother's engagement ring that had been shown to Dede on numerous visits, a small diamond set at the center of a gold filigree flower. Ay, Hamito, she said, tilting it to catch the light. It's lovely. My heart, he said. I know I have to ask your father for your hand, but no matter what Minerva says, I'm modern. I believe the woman should be asked first. That's when they heard the alerting little cough from the back of the car. She and Hamito looked at each other in shock. Who's there? Hamito cried out. Who? He had turned himself around so he was kneeling on the front seat. Relax. It's just me, Leo whispered from the back of the car. Turn off the light, will you? Jesus Christ! Hamito was furious. But he did turn off the light. He sat down again, facing the front as if he and his girl were alone, talking intimacies. Look, I'm sorry, Leo explained. The heat is on. Mario's house is surrounded. My ride to the capital is stopping at the anacuita tree at dawn. I have to hide out till then. So you come here and endanger this whole family? Hamito twisted around in the seat, ready to throttle this reckless man. I was hoping to get this to Minerva. A hand slipped an envelope between Hamito and Dede. Before Hamito could grab it, Dede had it. She put it away in her pocket. I'll take care of it, she promised. Now you've done what you came to do. You're not staying here. I'll give you a goddamn ride. Hamito's father's Chevy was parked in front of the house by the gate. Hamito, be smart. Listen. Leo's whispers were eerie, a disembodied voice from the dark interior of the car. If you're on the road in the middle of the night, of course you'll be stopped and your car searched. They agreed. When Hamito was finally convinced, she walked him down the drive to his car. So what do you think, my love? He asked as she was kissing him goodbye. I think you should go home and let him catch the ride he's already arranged. I'm talking about my proposal, Dede. Hamito's voice was that of a hurt little boy. It wasn't so much that she had forgotten as it was the inevitability of that proposal. They had been headed for it since they had patted mud balls together as toddlers in the backyard. Everyone said so. There was no question, was there? But that they would spend the rest of their lives together. He kissed her hard, his body insisting that her body answer. But Dede's head was spinning away with questions. Yes, my love, of course, but you must go. I don't want you to be stopped on the road. Don't worry about me, my darling, Hamito said bravely, emboldened by her concern. But he left soon after, a last lingering kiss. Alone, Dede breathed in the cool air and looked up at the stars. She would not count them tonight, no. She twisted the ring around and around her finger, glancing towards the car at the bottom of the drive. Leo was there, safe. And only she knew it, only she, Dede. No, she would not tell Minerva. She wanted to hold the secret to herself just this one night. In the bedroom she had once shared with Patria, the lamp was burning low. Dede took out the letter from her pocket and stared at the poorly sealed envelope. She toyed with the flap and it came easily undone. Slipping the letter out, she read haltingly, telling herself after each paragraph she would stop. Leo was inviting Minerva to take asylum with him. She should drive down to the capital on the pretense of seeing the exhibit at the Colombian embassy and refuse to leave. What a risk to ask her sister to take. Why, the embassies were surrounded these days, and all of the recent refugees had been intercepted and put in prison, where most of them had disappeared forever. Dede could not expose her sister to this danger, especially if, as Minerva claimed, she did not even love this man. Dede took the chimney off the lamp, and with a trembling hand fed the letter to the flame. The paper lit up. Ashes fluttered like moths, and Dede ground them to dust on the floor. She had taken care of the problem, and that was that. Looking up at the mirror, she was surprised by the wild look on her face. The ring on her finger flashed a feverish reminder. She brushed her hair up into a tight ponytail and put on her nightgown. Having blown out the light, she slept fitfully, holding her pillow like a man in her arms.